welcome to Misfits and Motorcycles.
Episode 1 of, oh gosh, 1,000 millions!
Right here at the Recycle Garage in sunny Santa Cruz, California.
You know, this is kind of nostalgic because back in the day, we used to record Misfits podcast right here in this very room.
Hey everyone, I am Liza.
I'm Emma.
And we are the Misfits.
We put the miss into fits.
Yeah, and I'm not the fit or the miss, but
That's okay.
we'll go with it. It's all about Emma. So we are here to answer your questions, to teach you about everything motorcycle related.
This is Motorbikes 101. Hopefully we're going to be approaching some complex subjects, but if we do it in a simple way and a fun way, some of it might get through.
Exactly. And we want your questions. Send them to askthemisfits@gmail.com.
And that is MISSFITS@gmail.com.
Perfect. So we have our first question, and it's a good one. Let me get it. It's from Alan Pierce.
Alan!
Alan!
Shout out for our camera crew there.
Yeah, we got Bagel and John. Alan says, I have one for you, Liza and Emma. My 2005 Suzuki DL650 Vstrom.
That is a very good bike.
John has one. Has 56,000 miles.
Okay.
Just breaking in. Is using oil at the rate of a pint every 500 miles. No smoke, no strong odor of burning oil reported by rider behind me, no oil in the air box, and absolutely no oily residue at the end of the exhaust pipe. My best guess is blow-by at the piston rings, but I would expect some evidence of oil coming out of the pipe. Any thoughts? Thanks, Alan.
Ow!
It's a great question, and this is quite a common problem with the Vstrom. So the reason we like this question to start, it's a perfect question because it gets into the very fundamentals of how engines work and what's going on inside them. Here at Recycle Garage, we like vintage bikes. So here I am with a 1979 750 Yamaha. It's a perfect example to show what's going on. Okay, so we're going to move from this engine into some componentry, and you can actually see what's going on inside an engine. So this is a cylinder head from a 750 Honda. Again, it's a vintage bike, but the principles are the same. And what I'm going to concentrate on here are the valves. This is the intake valve. This is the exhaust valve. The intake valve is how we suck in the combustible mixture into the combustion chamber. That's the suck part. The exhaust valve is how we get rid of that burnt combustion material and push it out of the exhaust. That's the blow part. Now you'll notice, if you look at these, the intake valve is considerably larger than the exhaust. But why is that? All engines, all internal combustion engines, have built-in inefficiency. They lose energy through heat, they lose energy through noise. If you touch the outside of an engine, you'll notice it gets extremely hot, particularly an air-cooled engine. If you take the exhaust off a motorcycle and start it, you'll hear it's quite loud. A lot of bikes are quite loud with their exhaust system on. So there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of noise energy being wasted, and that's wasted energy. The only energy you actually want is the force of that piston being moved down and in turn turning the crankshaft. This is energy we can use. So there's wasted energy, and because of that wasted energy, the amount of material that the engine is going to push out is less than it draws in. So hence, you need a smaller valve for the exhaust. So let's get back to Alan's question, where's his oil going? Well, we're only going to deal with part of the equation. So I've flipped the head over now, and this is where we're going to get into some of where Alan's oil consumption is going. Now the valve is open and closed. There are various means to open and close the valve. It could be via a rocker arm, it could be directly on the camshaft, but nevertheless it's got to be opened and then closed by mechanism within your bike, and it's happening quite quickly. If your bike is turning at 8,000 RPM, this valve is opening and closing 4,000 times a minute, which is a lot. So, not surprisingly, it can wear. We're going to take the valve out and we're going to look at the valve itself. Now you can see it's kind of a bell shape, but what we're looking at is this area right here, from here to here. And you'll see it's shiny, it's kind of polished, and that's purely from wear. It's not wear you can feel, but there is wear on there. And that microscopic amount of wear can contribute to oil consumption. The oil is moving past, and they even put an oil seal on here to try and keep oil out. You do not want oil in the combustion chamber. If you're burning oil, you're using it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into Alan's problem and his oil consumption. And bear in mind, this is just half of the equation. But we look at the valve and we can see the shiny area. This is area of wear. We can't feel it, but I think it's going to be sufficient to cause a bit of an oil consumption problem. To check this, we're going to put the valve in upside down and we're going to rock it backwards and forwards. And I can feel a little movement there. It's the tiniest amount, but I think it's sufficient to burn a little oil. Now, if we take the valve back out, we can see there's actually an oil seal on top. And this mitigates the problem somewhat, but over the course of 56,000 miles, the oil seal's going to go a little bit harder and the oil's going to go past. So I think that's half of Alan's problem, but bear in mind it's only half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the valve back in, we'll put the cylinder head to one side, and we're going to bring in the cylinder. Now once again, this is the same bike. This is a 1970s era Honda CB750, and you can see it's a 4-cylinder bike. The piston, which contributes to the reciprocal movement of the engine, it goes up and down, runs in this, the cylinder. It's a very, very hardened surface. Now, it's moving pretty quickly, very quickly in fact, and over the life of an engine you would expect wear. I think in Alan's case what we're seeing is a small amount of wear in the cylinder and a small amount of wear in the valve stem, and that combined is going to contribute to the oil consumption he's thinking about. Now, in both of these cases, and he makes a point of saying this, why am I not seeing oil residue out of the exhaust or smelling oil residue? And I think the reason for this, and this is where we get into the fundamental difference between vintage engines like this and modern engines like the Vstrom. The Vstrom is a fuel injected bike, and it's a lot more fuel efficient than these old dinosaurs that we're looking at here. Carbureted bikes, they run great, but they do tend to run a little bit on the fat side. Because Alan's bike is a fuel injected bike, the temperatures in the engine are a lot higher than you'd find in a bike like this. And because the temperatures are higher, it's actually burning off that oil residue. In an older bike like this, you'd smell it, you'd see it, you'd see a trail of oil smoke behind the machine. Because the cylinder temperatures are so high in the Vstrom, it's burning it. Now sooner or later, as we go through the life cycle of that engine, the oil consumption is going to get higher. And as it gets higher, you're going to see traces of oil, smoke in the exhaust, and you're actually going to start smelling it. You're not there yet. So, in answer to your question, should I do something about it? You have to make that equation.
So basically, what I got from that is blah, 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 blah. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly how I talk. Congratulations.
So, there's one other test you can do.
Yes. If you take your exhaust and stick your finger in the end of it and just... Now you can see that that is pretty sooty. What you've got to do is understand the difference between a dry and then a moist. And I think he's going to see moist in there. Do it when the engine is warm. It's going to be kind of hot in there, so don't go bananas with it. But that's basically what you're going to see. I think it is burning. I think that the fact that the combustion chamber temperatures are so high, it's masking it.
So what is the conclusion?
It's burning oil. Is it worth rebuilding the engine? Which means engine out on that particular bike. Only you can answer that. The yardstick I would use, if it was my bike, I'd wait for a little. A pint every 500 miles it's getting up there, but it's not excessive oil consumption. You're not causing a public nuisance. Nobody can smell your oil. Nobody can see your oil. That is going to come, but that may be further down the road than you think. So for now, put up with it. Make sure you have oil. You know, if you go on a run and it's 1,000 miles, you know you're going to need a couple of pints of oil.
There you go. And at least he's not making a mess on the garage floor.
Right, you know, like an English bike would.
We didn't even talk about American bikes. Yes, like an English bike. So don't forget, if you would like to ask a question to the Misfits, you can reach us at askthemisfits@gmail.com.
And that's MISSFIT. Is it Misfits?
Misfits.
FITS.
There you go. We're the Misfits.
We are.
And don't forget to check out motorcyclesandmisfits.com, where you'll find our podcast. Give it a listen. And also, please, if you would like and subscribe to us so you get all of our new videos.
Right. And we're going to be covering a lot of ground. Today it was a very basic introduction to engines. But we're going to get down and dirty. We're going to strip engines down. We're going to deal with suspensions. We're going to deal with braking. We're going to deal with tyres. So every aspect of your motorbike we're going to cover. But we can only answer what you ask. So please, send your question in and we'll do our best.